Welcome to MMA Fancast. My name is Luke Pace, and I am joined by Craig Perry. Craig, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
It is good to have you back on. I had you on once before talking about your debut MMA fight at 247 Fighting Championship, Brawl in the Berg 9 back in October. You ended up fighting a very good fight for a debut fighter, and it ended up being a split decision loss. Now this is fight week for Brawl in the Berg 10, 247 Fighting Championships, February 5th at Monroeville Convention Center. Let's start right there. We'll go backwards and talk about your fight in October. But let's start about what it feels like to be in fight week for your second fight versus your first fight. And what have you learned about kind of the nerves and the energy of fight week since you've already been through it once before?
Yeah, it's different. Second time around, definitely not as nervous in terms of like, I don't have to think about what it's going to be like or what it's going to be like to weigh in. I know that I'm going to see my opponent there at weigh-ins, and I just like know the procedures now, so I can just think about the fight. And I'm definitely not nervous. I think it comes down to just like sparring all the time. So to me, this is kind of like just another week. Like this is just a sparring session. It's just in front of more people, you know? So, and that like I don't really get nervous for it. I'm more so excited.
Well, it's great to hear that you're excited. You train out of the Academy Pittsburgh, and you have one of the more interesting ways of how you got in MMA. You saw, you were watching UFC, you saw Khama the Death Star Worthy fighting, and it said that he was from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in parentheses after his name. And you went, what the heck? And you looked him up, and he runs the Academy Pittsburgh, and you've been training with him ever since, which is kind of cool to see that you saw somebody at the UFC level and then you're like, let me train with him. What's it been like? We're going to get to asking about Khama being on this card with you, which is really cool. But what's it been like training with Khama and all the Academy guys ever since you started, and then particularly after your first fight? What has it been like training with the Academy guys after you came back from your first fight?
It was good. Like they're really cool. They're levels above me. I mean, they're levels above anyone in Pittsburgh, obviously, but so sometimes it's frustrating to spar with them. I mean, they let me work and they're not like killing me in there, but it's still frustrating because, but you have to just remind yourself, like, these guys are at the top. Like, you're not going to go in there and land a whole bunch on them in sparring. So in that sense, it can be like a little bit frustrating to spar with them. But at the end of the day, when you go spar with anybody else, you realize like to be able to go with Khama and John and all those guys. Am I losing you here?
You're in and out.
Yeah,
We'll just continue on because of, but you were mentioning John DeJesus and obviously Khama and his brother Shaka. I mean, I think there's a sense of humility that needs to be there in training. Anytime a fighter talks about dominating every sparring session, particularly young in their amateur career, that concerns me because either they're not being realistic or they're only sparring people so far below them that it's not helping them. I think it's great that you're sparring Khama, John DeJesus, who are both high-level pros. They're not just pros. They're high-level pros. Bellator, UFC, now back to 247. And so what was an experience with Khama or John that really taught you, wow, there's levels to this?
I mean, John was actually the first person that threw a punch at me in sparring way back. Like we did boxing sparring, and I remember I had my headgear with me, and I didn't put it on because no one else had it on. And John was there, and I didn't really know too much about like who was a pro, who wasn't. And it was my first boxing sparring session, and he hit me with a jab, and I was like, all right, hold on, I'm gonna go put on my headgear real quick. And then I threw it on. So I mean, I guess you could say that taught me that there's levels to it, but really like just in those sparring nights, like I'll go with a teammate who's I mean, almost everyone in there is higher level than I am, which is great. But like even going with someone a little bit higher level, I'll do a round with them, and then I'll go with Khama. And I mean, it's like night and day. Like it's very obvious there's levels to this.
Yeah. And it's good that you found the Pittsburgh Academy. Obviously, it's one of the best in Pittsburgh. Hunter, the GM for 247, put out a great article on sort of the local Pittsburgh area gyms, obviously the Mat Factory. There's several others, but it's just great to see you connected. Such a great gym. Let's get to what are your feelings of fighting on the same card as Khama were, that you got interested in MMA because you were watching it. You saw Khama fighting at the highest level at UFC. Now he's back to 247, likely only for one fight. He'll most likely, if it goes his way, he'll most likely go someplace else after this. So what's it like feeling wise for you in your second fight to be on the same card? That's why Brandenburg 10 is such a stacked card. You're an amateur building up your career on the same card as Khama Worthy. What does that feel like, him being one of your main coaches?
It's really cool. I was telling my boxing coach, Chris Williams, this the other day. I was like, I'm getting more nervous and more excited for Khama's fight and for Patton's fight than I am for my own, to be honest. Like, I just want to get mine over with and go watch them because, like, I don't know. It's just like I never thought it would be like this, but it's like a family type bond. Like, I want to see those guys win more than I want to see myself win almost. Like, I don't know. I'm super excited, though. I think they're both going to do great. It's going to be awesome.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's one of the things that makes MMA or any type of training. It could be BJJ, it could be Muay Thai, it could be some type of other martial art. But I think people are surprised with how much of a family it is, and that's probably because you're training so hard. You have to trust each other. If there's not trust, we've seen at the UFC level some really bitter team breakups, and I think that happens when there's not trust and when people get too about themselves and not humble, and that obviously keeps the family really, really tight. You mentioned Justin Patton. He's the other Khama. There's two pro fights Saturday. Khama is one of them, obviously the headliner against Jeremiah Scott. That's going to be a great fight, clearly. And then also Patton looking for his first pro win after a rough start to his pro. What have you kind of seen training with Patton? What have you kind of seen about the process? You bouncing back from your first amateur fight, which was a loss, very close. We'll talk about it here in a second. Patton bouncing back from his first pro loss that wasn't that close. He got caught by an armbar. It was kind of a frustrating thing. What is it like to be around somebody who's coming off their first pro fight loss and you coming off your first ever fight loss? How is that like working together?
I mean, it's definitely inspiring watching Patton like work in the gym because he's literally always working. Like, if he's not at the academy, he's at the Mat Factory. And if he's not there, he's at Stout. Like, he's always coming from MMA or going to a session. Like, he works like very, very hard. And it's inspiring to see that. Like, he lost his first pro fight. And like everyone says, like, once you go pro, your record starts to matter. But I mean, he's got like blinders on. Like, he doesn't even care. He's a beast. So it's definitely inspiring to see like someone way higher level.
Yeah.
He's coming back from a loss and he's like full force ahead, and I'm just coming back from a split decision loss in an amateur career, so I'm trying to keep up with him and like work just as hard.
Well, it's great to see that role model because obviously I've worked with amateur fighters who after their first fight, if it was a loss, they kind of give up. So I give you a lot of credit and your gym a lot of credit, keep you motivated and recognize Justin's obviously doing that at the pro level. It's also surprising to know, I look at a lot of people's records. I interview a lot of people off the Dana White Contender Series. And, they're obviously at that point at a very high sort of regional pro level looking for the UFC. And it's surprising how many of those fighters started their pro career with a loss. Like, it's interesting that a lot of pro fighters within the first one or two pro fights hit a loss and then end up going on to a great career. So it kind of does show you that there's, a buildup that needs. Now, let's talk a little bit about your fight. It was a split decision loss against Sean McGuire. It was his debut, your debut. It was back in October 23rd, Brandenburg 9. Kind of talk about what you have learned from that. It was split decision, so it's as close to a win as you can get while losing, which I think confuses some people. Did you have to explain what a split decision was to anybody that was there for you? Because it can kind of be confusing. And then what did you learn about it?
I mean, all my friends were like, bro, were we watching the same fight? We thought you won all this, but like, obviously they're going to say that.
Yeah.
I didn't really have to explain to anyone what split decision loss was. It is like a weird thing to explain though. Like the one or two times I did have to explain it. But I mean, for the most part, like I didn't talk about it too much because I mean, wins and losses, especially at amateur, like they don't matter.
Yep.
And I mean, I lose, like I said, I lose every day in the gym to Khama, John, everybody there. Like I lose all the time. So like wins and losses, like they don't mean anything. It's just about like I know I needed to get better at wrestling and grappling, so that's what I focused on.
Sure.
And that's what I took from it. It's like the win or learn mindset. There's not
Mhm.
wins or losses to me. Cause I mean, like I said, I lose all the time. So in the gym. So it's not a big deal.
Well, as a guy that came off the couch, meaning you didn't have martial arts background before and you just started training, you have like all the right mindset. I think that goes a long way. You're around the great guys, Khama and John and everybody else at the academy has the right mindset, which goes a long way. It is win or learn. I called your fight. It was a great fight to call. I give both you and your opponent credit. It's great. He was from Scorpion Fighting Systems. It was great to see two purely debuters, 0-0 fighters, have such poise and skill that it became such a close fight. He out grappled you in some of the exchanges, which ended up leading him to the win. But you clearly looked more calm and skillful on your feet, which would make sense with Khama and John DeJesus and all your other sparring partners. What was it like comfortability wise? Where did you feel comfortable? Obviously, I know you're working on your grappling, but do you bring a sense of confidence knowing that some of the fight went very well? It wasn't a complete loss, obviously, in the sense that there was a lot of learning, but there was also a lot of things that went well for you. And what was that like?
Yeah, it was cool. Like after the fight, I didn't get my hand raised and that was disappointing. And I was in the back and like it was nice because at least there was like positives to take away from it. It's not like even if I had gotten knocked out in the first second, I would still be right back here talking to you. Like, I mean, there's nothing else right now that I love to do. So, I mean, I'm going to keep coming back and fighting no matter what. But it was good to take away positives and be like, okay, here and here, you did well. These are the areas we need to improve on. So yeah, it was nice to do well on the feet and like be able to like see like, oh, all the stuff we're doing is like really working and I can just trust myself to just like let my hands go in there and so that's a good thing.
Yeah, I'm glad you see it that way. You know, there was a lot of benefit from your first fight. You've mentioned an attitude. There was a pro fighter actually out of Stout that came on a couple years back. Rubio was his last name, and he talked about how records, amateur records, are for DJs, meaning it doesn't really matter your amateur record. It's about learning. Really funny line, and I've always liked it since then. And it's a great line. But recognizing that, like, even if you had got knocked out in the first 10 seconds, it's still a learning process. You're not even 21. You'll be 21 about a month, right around a month after this fight. Do you kind of think about how young you are and recognizing that you have 5 years, maybe more, before you're even at a point where most people start MMA? I'd say most people start in maybe their mid 20s as opposed to late teens, early 20s. So what type of confidence does that give you?
That's a good point. I mean, the age thing is like there's guys at the gym that started when they were like 7 and then there are guys that started way later. So I mean, I really think it all comes down to like everyone's on their own path and like comparing is such an easy thing to do. It's like, oh, but he started earlier and he started later, like, but yeah, at the end of the day, like you just kind of have to trust your coaches. Cause I've talked about this with my coaches. I was like, do you guys think I took my to career? Like should I have worked more on grappling and wrestling? And I'm like blessed to have like the best coaches I think around, and they always reassure me, and they know what they're doing. So I mean, age wise, I don't think about it. I just listen to what they say. I trust what they say, and I mean, it's definitely going to be a while before I turn pro. Like I have a long time to be an amateur and learn and get tough fights where I'm challenged, like in my first one. So the age thing is not a huge deal. It's more like just go in there, work hard, get the experience, and try not to compare yourself if you can. I think that's like right now, that's my mindset.
It's really refreshing to see you have that mindset. Another person that has that mindset similar is, of course, he's undefeated and the defending reigning 135-pound amateur champ. But Khama Allgaier is a guy who a lot of people would think would have gone pro, maybe after starting out 4-0. Now he's 5-0. Now he's 6-0, fighting another guy, Hunter Starner, who's also 6-0. And I think both of them came on the show and both of them talked about how they understand that once you go pro, like you talked about, like once you go pro, things are permanent. And even though they're both undefeated, I think it's it's refreshing to see them have the mindset that you have, that they want to keep getting better at their craft at the amateur level. And that's why I don't think it's the worst thing for you to have had a tough fight to start out. It matures you. You learn to focus on a couple things. Some things went really well, because for people that don't know what a split decision loss or win means, in your case, it means one judge said you won the fight and two said you lost. And so that's as close as you can get to winning while losing, or vice versa. Sean, who beat you, he also has to deal with the fact that one judge thought he had lost. So it kind of goes both ways in that. And I think it's really nice to see amateurs that have the humility. I've worked with some fighters who, after one or two amateur wins, thought they were pro ready, and it's just not, it's not a realistic viewpoint of themselves or their talent. And it's great to see these really experienced amateurs that are going to be on that card with you, fighting for the belt, that really show like it's good to stay at amateur and really build up your career. What do you want to see out of yourself for it to be a successful night? I'm not necessarily talking wins and losses, but what do you want to see out of yourself for it to be a successful night for On the Berg 10 this Saturday, February 5th, Monroeville Convention Center for 247 Fighting Championships?
Yeah, I want to, at the end of the night, I don't want to have any regrets. Like, I don't want to, and there might be, but this is just like perfect scenario. I don't want to get to the back and be like, I should have done this, because it's something we've been working on. And I totally like just, I got caught in the moment and I didn't think about it. Like, I want to be clear headed in there. I want to be like calm, and I want to just like make sure I stick to what we've been working on. And as long as I do that and I just leave everything I have out there, I won't be satisfied, but I'll be happy. Yeah. Even if I win, I won't be satisfied, because I definitely have like dreams and goals in this sport. So, but for it to be like a good night, I think those things, if they happen, I'll be all right.
Well, it's great to see you having that mindset, and also having the mindset that even if you do get your first win, which would be a wonderful experience, that you know ahead of time that you're not going to let that satisfy you. You're still going to want progress. And I think that makes a huge difference in your life. Hats off to you, Khama, Shaka, John Jesus, all the coaches, Chris Williams, as you talked about, boxing coach. It's really exciting to see the Academy, the Mat Factory, Stout, other gyms, Pittsburgh Institute Training, Pitt, came out really looking good last time. And so it's really exciting to see a lot of the local gym products. So can't wait to see you in action. I'm honored to be able to call your, so far, all your MMA fights. I'll be there ringside calling them. So I'm really excited about that. And of course, I also get the honor of interviewing whoever wins after the fight, which is also really exciting role for me. You know, it's just really nice to be able to talk to whoever wins. And so I'm looking forward to Saturday. Thanks for taking time out of your fight week to come on the show. Best skills to you. Can't wait to see you in action. Thanks again, Craig. And have a good one.
Thank you so much for having me.
You got it.
You
Thank
too.
you. Take care. See you Saturday. All right, bud. Bye-bye.
Yeah.